So let me introduce myself first, and then I will cover the things that is needed for the Databricks, right? Myself, Harshit Goyal. I'm working as a solution designer, right? And currently, I have approximately 10 years of experience with the different domains, with the different industry and companies, right? Potentially, majorly, I have worked for the finance a lot, and apart from that, I have also worked for the hospitality industry as well, right? So today's we are going to cover about getting start with the Azure Databricks, right? So it's basically getting start with Databricks, and because I have worked a lot on Azure, so I've kept like Azure Databricks. But Databricks is one of the platform which is available in multiple CSPs, basically cloud providers, right? Public cloud providers. So it's applicable for either we are looking for this for AWS, or we are looking at for this for GCP as well. Okay, let me start. And yeah, so this is the agenda that we are going to cover today. The agenda is what is our Databricks, what all the key features we have, how to do an integration of Databricks with Git repository, basically what potentially the whatever the SCM we have. Some we'll talk about few. If we talk about the Metastore configuration, small Metastore configuration, and then there is a demo, and then we'll end it up with the industry best practices. Okay, so okay, so let's go to the next slide now. And what is Azure Databricks? So Azure Databricks is basically coming as like analytical platform, right? And which is basically optimized for Azure, Microsoft Azure Cloud and cloud service platform, right? Potentially, as of now, if you see, Azure Databricks is applicable for majorly looking for three steps, three things majorly. One is the Databricks SQL. Second is like any kind of Databricks data science and engineering workload, and Databricks machine learning. Databricks SQL is majorly basic SQL, right? I mean, like the SQL that we are using since so long, right? The entire SQL is NC standards, right? So whatever we are, yeah. This is the Databricks SQL that we can directly use and query the data within our data lake or Delta Lake. When we say data engineering, it talks about the pipelines, data engineering workloads, and basically all the pipelines that we want to say. Suppose we want to get the data from different sources, execute those pipelines, and all those things, right? When we say data science, is like whatever the team we have in our system, in our company, the data science team can work on that, right? When we say machine learning, so I've never used this Databricks machine learning part, but potentially, I mean, yeah, I'm working only as like a data engineer, right? So potentially it talks about there is another GUI is being added few days back only by Databricks for machine learning loads. So we can create our machine learning models on that, and basically try to enhance those models, right? So just to add on this, let me share what we are going to do today. So I will come to the demo. I will start that how we can use the Azure Databricks to start with Azure DevOps, and we'll try to we'll cover all those agenda points whatever we have, be it the Git integration, or whatever Git integration or industry best practices, and some Metastore configuration as well, right? So for Azure, like what we would do, it's a single portal. We have to go to the Azure portal.azure.com, and once we reach out to this, basically Azure gives us to start with Azure, right? It gives us a $200 of credit to start for anybody, right? So we can start this Azure with a free account. Basically, they call it like a free account, and basically create our account over here. Okay, once we create, it's a $200 of worth of credit is being given for 1 month. Potentially of the services within that free services, those services are available. Few services are available for 12 months, but few are not. So basically we need to consume those $200 in 2 months, basically. uh, Okay, so once we go to here, the portal.azure. So just to add on this, right, the first thing, we should have a subscription. So the free account is a subscription, and then okay, just give me a sec there. Yeah. So I will cover this, that how to create the Databricks cluster and how it is working. So I'm going to take it as an with an example, like what we are doing on the on-prem environment in the Cloudera stack and how it has changed the life of a person, right? Okay, so this is my portal. I have already one subscription with me, right? And so I will start creating the resources in this, and we'll see that how we can start with the resource Azure Databricks. So first, what we have to do, we have to click on this plus button, and we basically need to search for the Azure Databricks service. Yeah. So within the portal, what we have to do, we have to create a Azure Databricks as a service, right? And that service basically is nothing. It is the Azure Databricks workspace, and then we'll have a workspace to work on that, right? So once you log into the portal, you just search for the Azure Databricks. So this is the Azure Databricks, and I have already created actually this all things, but I just want to give a glimpse on this, that how we can create how we can start with the Azure Databricks, because this is a getting start session, right? So once you create on this Azure Databricks, it's basically first is a subscription. So subscription is nothing. It is where you have been charged. Okay. So basically we are going to use this Azure as a Azure. We are going to use the Azure, right? So subscription is where I'm going to charge. Microsoft is going to charge to me, right? So my as of now it's a pay as you go subscription, and here the resource group. So resource group is nothing but it's just like a logical container for all the resources. And when I say resources, Azure Databricks is one of the resource in them. Okay. So basically what we have to do here, I mean, in my subscription, I have already one a few resource groups. You can say resource group Databricks demo. But if you don't have, we can create a new one from here itself. You just click on this, you just give the name. Okay. So let me give a name that will help us. Yeah, resource group RJ. Generally we usually use this kind of naming convention. Like I have started with this RJ. RJ reads stands for the resource group. Okay. So let me create another resource group which is RJ Databricks demo 001. Okay. And now we have to give a name to our workspace. So what will happen in this logical container, resource group is one of the logical container, this database process will be created. Okay. So okay, so what is the name? Okay, so let me give dbr dbr data dbr demo 001. Okay. Here we can decide what is the reason we want to use. So mostly I usually use east us or east us 2 only. This is the potentially these are the two first child for Microsoft. So all the services are available in this region. So I usually prefer to go always on the east us, right? So I have given is like a east us region and the pricing tier. Okay. So currently these are the three pricing tiers that this service basically will be charged. I mean, like we will be charged for these pricing tiers. One is talks about standard, which is Apache Spark Secure-based Azure AD. Second is a premium, where we have role-based access control, and third one is a trial. So currently we can use with a trial because this is the first time using within this subscription, right? And once to start with, we only need to fill this. Then there's a next step which is talks about the networking. Currently, because this is a demo, we are not going to change anything. This is as same as it is there, right? Potentially, if we are working in any enterprise level environment, we need to change it. Like say suppose if you read this, this talks about deploy Azure Databricks workspace with a secure cluster connectivity, no public IP, right? Some of the organization may have a kind of a constraint to use a public IP, because this is the public cloud, right? So basically those configuration will be needed on the enterprise level. So potentially most of the enterprise level deployment have this own private IPs. And again, if we have any virtual network, then we can use those as well, right? Virtual network, which is basically on the enterprise, we capped it as it is for now. The second is like this is the another enable infrastructure encryption. I will cap it as it is. tags are very useful, right, to few things, right? If you want to create a kind of a report for corresponding environment, what is my bill, what is the cost. Okay, so we can captures like environment equals to, like we can give, as of now I have already created, so it's learning. But otherwise we can add one more, like say a team, or you can say a team, right? So which department, right? Department. So department, maybe we can say application, app dev, app dev and department. This is my one of the department, right? So this is how we can create a different tag, and finally go to the review button. Okay, once we review it, it basically do some validation that all the mandated things are there, and then we'll proceed with the creation. So I'm not going to create it, I just want to show you how it's basically how simple it is to create a workspace from this portal. We just only need to create now. I already have this one workspace, so let me show you that. Okay, so I need to search here the resource group. So basically, if you see, these are the three resource groups it is showing me, and this is one of the resource group that is being automatically created. And once you create the resource, you will find that there is a network watcher. Basically, this is something is related to the Microsoft, that they want to see that what is happening on the network side. So there's no use for us as of now, so I will keep it as it is. This is my major one of the resource group that I'm using. So if I click on this is this is the resource group. And if you see this, if this is screen, right, this is one of my resource Databricks service that I'm using. So this is already I have created. So this is a it took around 4 minutes to deploy. You can see here a deployment successful. This is a Databricks service. Okay, if you click on this, it will basically land it to the another GUI, which basically talks about the Databricks properties, whatever the workspace we have. It talks about managed resource group, it talks about URL, it talks about pricing tier, all those things, right? So potentially these are the some few settings that it shows over here, right? Now uh, 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 what we have to do, if you see, this is a very important part, I want to emphasize on this as well. This talks about the managed resource group, right? And this is the Databricks resource group. uh, so but I have created the service in this resource group, which names right DVR demo, but it has its own managed resource group. So potentially this is just a server, and for the entire Databricks workspace, this resource is going to use. So if you go to the resource group panel, you can see this is the another resource group I can see. This is the same that I'm showing over here. What is happening is within the workspace, which is a Databricks workspace, whatever the things are happening, those are those are being those are being managed from, yeah, if you click on this, whatever the things are happening, those are for the Databricks, on the Databricks level, it is happening from this resource group. If I click on this, it basically landed it me to the another page, which has three, as of now, three resources. One is the storage account, second is the NSG network security group, and third one is the worker VNet. So basically this entire setup is running, I mean, like, in Azure there is already a virtual network created, and the entire setup is running in this. Okay, this is a very important screen. Once I start the cluster, we'll see that we can see there will be few virtual machines will start over here, few resources will create over here. Nothing will there, I mean, it all the resources related to a workspace will be available over here. Okay, so just to see what we have to do now, this is these are the two places we can go to the direct URL, or we can click on the launch workspace. So as soon as we create on the launch workspace, it basically launches a workspace. uh, Potentially long workspace is just oh, sorry workspace is just a web UI and web server. It's just a web server. Okay, so whenever we click on the workspace, what it does, it basically it basically get the things from this storage account. Okay, so let me click on this workspace and then we'll move ahead. So we click on this launch workspace. This is the URL that's being created, right? And As of now, what I have done is for myself, this is my personal account. So I've created my Azure Active Directory as well. Okay. So my Active Directory name, if you see here, right? If you see on the portal, this is my Active Directory. Harshit Goel is my Active Directory. So this is my Active Directory. And as of now, I am the only user on this workspace. Yeah. So this is a UI. Okay. So this is the web server which is running, and it is basically picking a data from this storage account. That's why this storage account is present over here. Uh, it is here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's move to this UI. This is the entire workspace. This is our area to work as an application developer. If you're working as an application developer, or if we are maybe working in kind of any kind of support role, there also we can start with this. Okay, so let me go through one by one all these things, what exactly these are, and then we'll proceed further. Right. So this is the home page. We all know about it, right? And if you go to the data science, if you go this drop down, it talks about two things. One is data science and engineering, second is machine learning. So as soon as you change, this is a toggle button. If you change it, the entire UI will change. If you click on the machine learning, it basically added and it basically shows. Just a sec, I need to fix it first. Just give me a sec. Expand. Yeah. So if I click on this machine learning, basically the entire UI changed, the options also changed. So I have never worked on the machine learning part. So I will kept this for the data engineering only. And within this data engineering, this is what we are going to do now, like data engineering and data science, right? Now it talks about create, which talks about notebook creation, table creation, cluster creation, and job. If I click on the workspace, this is my workspace where all the data, notebooks, and all different things are saved. We'll come on this. This is the major part we will cover. This is the recent button, as we know, search button. This is a data button where we can create the databases as well in Databricks. Okay, so this talks about that databases. We can see the tables, whatever tables we have created. Now this is a cluster. Okay, so this is the very important part, meaning this web UI is just a web server. It is picking few data, few things from the storage account, as I've shown on the portal. Now this is a cluster. So this is a processing unit that is going to process my data as a data engineering work stack. And this is about the jobs. Okay, so I have already created this cluster. Let me start it. It took 3 minutes to start this cluster, and then I will create another cluster so that we can start. I mean, like, we can create, right? So to create a cluster, we can see here. This is create cluster button. If you click on the create cluster button, it basically asks you the cluster name, right? So let's say Databricks. You can give any name. Databricks demo 001 001, right? Now there are different modes in the cluster, right? When we say cluster, meaning there will be the multiple nodes, right? So uh, what we have to do is, if you go to drop down, it talks about three type of cluster mode: uh, high concurrency, standard, and single node. So these are the cluster mode, right? And when we say high current concurrency, that talks about the different machines, right? Standard is a very standard, and single node is like so what single node is like, we have driver as well as my worker node on the same node, right? So if you so let's create a standard cluster. Okay, we don't need any pool. Pool is not usable for us. Otherwise, if you want to see what exactly it is, this pool keeps the definite number of instances ready to reduce, right? Ready to use, right? Now this is very important part. Databricks runtime. So how Databricks is offering the things, they call it DBR, Databricks runtime, right? And there are different Databricks runtimes are available. If you click on more, you will find so many Databricks runtimes are available. So if, say, suppose we have on-prem cluster, and we are using some lower version of Spark, right? These are the version also available, right? And potentially we should use LTS, long term. So LT stands for long term. Okay, there are few releases, those are short terms. There are few releases, those are long term. So whenever we create it, we should use LTS, because those are the long term releases, right? So as of now, we will be using the latest one, which is this. right? So there are some beta as well. So if you see, first Databricks really Databricks runtime is also available like 8.3 version, and these three comes as like a beta. Okay, so I mean, like beta, like we all know about how the beta version comes into the picture, right? So as of now, I'm taking this the first which talks about Scala 2.12 and a Spark 3.1.1. This is the version is going to create for our cluster. Now the very important part is enable scaling, right? Enable auto scaling. So meaning I can, okay, so yeah. So if you see here, there is a driver type and there is a worker type, right? I have given like minimum worker I need 2 and maximum is 8, right? Meaning whenever my cluster is not in use, I will be getting 2 worker node, 1 driver node, and rest 6 worker node will not run. So I'm not going to charge for those 6, right? And that's where this auto enable is being used. So say suppose I have executed any data engineering pipeline or data engineering workload, and it is needed a more memory. Okay, we need more executors. So it will basically keep on adding those executors and up to 8. Okay, up to 8. And once those once the load is lesser, it will keep on releasing those executors. And as soon as and basically what is happening, right? This is a public cloud, we are going to charge whatever we are doing. It's like a pay as you go model, right? So whatever the worker node counts, that will be charged to for me, right? So let what I have done is in my cluster, the another cluster that was there. So what I have done, I have given like stop this. I've made it like I only need one worker node, and this is the worker one driver node. Okay, now this is another very important part which talks about terminate after this much amount of inactivity. So this is quite clear with the name itself, right? We can give after how many minutes of inactivity the cluster should terminate. Okay, so minimum the value should be 10. Okay, we can't make it less than 10 minutes, and maximum we can go 200, we can go 120 minutes. I have seen 180 minutes as well. Okay, so I've capped it in my existing cluster as 10. Okay, okay, so once we set up this, okay, when we want to terminate it, now this talks about the worker type. This is the important part. Why? Because this is the machine that is this is a virtual machine that is being added as like a worker node. And if you see here, all those worker machines offering are available. Those are there in the Azure VM scenario. So we can say the general purpose SDD, memory optimized, remote remote SDD, and memory optimized. So if you want to change it, it talks, you can change, you could go over the go more, and different stuff are there. If you see, very important thing is here, it talks about, let's say, let's just discuss about this standard DS3 V2. It talks about 14 GB of RAM, 4 core, and 0.75 DBU. So this DBU stands for data bricks unit. So now what is happening is, we are going to pay, I mean, as a Harshit, I'm going to charges on two places. One is the virtual machine that is there in the Azure environment, and another is the another part is going to the Databricks side as well. So Databricks is going to calculate what how much money they want to get it based on this DBU. Okay, so say suppose I want to process, say there is a batch process, I want to process, say 10 million of record. Maybe I may need a bigger machine. Okay, maybe this 1.5 this machine would be like a standard DS4 V3. I will choose this, which is 28 GB 8 core and 1.5 DBU. So this is how the all charge happened. Okay, so potentially, as of now, I've capped is as less as possible. So this is like DS3 V2 machine, where 14 GB RAM, 4 cores, and this is what a 0.75 DBU. Okay. In a similar fashion, this is the same. I have capped as like a worker type and as well as the driver type. So if you want to change, you can change as well, but it's like a same as worker as of now, right? Okay. Potentially, these are the few advanced settings. I will come this I will touch upon this in the towards the end of this meetup, right? And once this done, I need to only click on this. create cluster, it will create my cluster. Okay, so this is a setting we have to do, and this is the Databricks cluster will be created. Okay, so I've already created this cluster, right? And I don't want to create it again, so I'm going to skip this create portion, and if I click on the cluster, yeah, so if you click on the cluster, this is my Databricks cluster is running now, right? So let me show those configuration that we have discussed few minutes back. So it talks about I have created a cluster mode, which is the standard one. I have used a DBR, which is to 8.2 version. It is, I'm giving like terminate in only 10 seconds, and then it comes like a worker node, which is one, and driver node as one, right? And if you go to the different tab, it talks about the notebook library. Okay, so what library I want to install, or what extra library we have. So as of now there is no library at all, but yeah, potentially we can install within the cluster. So you have to click on the install, and if you see this, these all things are coming. So if, say, suppose you need a PyPy package, so you have to give like PyPy package name. That's it. If it is a Maven package, you have to give a Maven library, right? If it is, say, suppose even you don't have a package and you want to update a jar, you want to use a jar in your cluster, right? Or maybe you have written some jar, right? So you can upload a jar, maybe a Python package or Python wheel package as well. Apart from that, you can directly upload. Yeah, from here you can upload, and even you can upload into DBFS as well as the ADLS Gen 2. So DBFS is like Databricks file system. ADLS is Azure Data Lake Storage, right? So we can upload those jar any of these places and refer in my cluster. So I need to only go to the, if there's a ready-made available package, I can put it over here. It will go to the pypy.org, I think pypy.org, yeah, and get it. If it is a Maven package, it will get it from Maven. Yeah, so this is how we can install. And potentially if you are working in any closed environment or enterprise level environment, you may need to change it. Maybe you have a, within your enterprise you have a PyPy library, maybe a Nexus repository where you have all the PyPy package, or maybe on the Maven package. You need to change this configuration, and once you change it, you will be able to get it from your closed environment libraries, right? This is the event log, very important, right? If you see here, it talks about all those things, like I have created this cluster, now terminated, now I have done some addition, then started the cluster is running now, and device is healthy. Those event according to the cluster is showing over here. This is a Spark UI, which is I mean, like, if we have already worked on the Spark application, we must have seen this. And yeah, so this is the Spark UI, we know about that, right? If you see, these are the timelines. This is how the executor ads comes whenever we work on the Spark, and these are the different stages. All these options are already available here, right? Apart from that, if you see the data, driver log, whatever the driver log, right? STT out error log4j, all those things are available. And yeah, as of now, if you want to use any web terminal or the R Studio, here also we can configure it. So far, this is a very important part. When we plan to our cluster, this is the cluster where we are going to process our data. So I just want to ask that, okay, do we have any question or anything that we want to understand, or if somebody wants to something to repeat, I can repeat, yeah, the things, yeah. Okay, so I'm taking it as like the things are clear. Okay, so once we have done with the with our Databricks cluster, now what we have to do, we have to go to the workspace. Okay, and when we go to the workspace, if you see, these are the very basic, I mean, workspace stuff, right? What I have done, I've created a folder. This is a folder I've created from here, like create option, created a folder, and within this folder I've created these two notebooks. Okay, so and if you go to the user, this is my user only, right? I've logged in with this, and with this user, this is my, so potentially what happens, so this workspace is being used by multiple people within the team, right? So all those team members can do, they have their personal area as well, like here they can do their personal things. And this is the project level folder, like Databricks demo is my project level folder. If I go to the Databricks, right, I should be, I think this one, yeah. So this is the Databricks. So whenever okay, let me create a notebook, that will help. Yeah, so if I go here, you can create a notebook. Okay, so basically you need to create a notebook, and whenever we create a notebook, Databricks asks that what is the default language. It could be Python, Scala, SQL, and RAR, right? So let's create as Python and then go to the create. So it will this is my notebook is being created. Okay, and if you see here, the Python is coming. If you want to change later point of time, here also we can change it. So basically, if you want to change, we can create from here as well. You just go to the Scala, SQL, or whatever it is. Okay, so let me go to my existing notebook, and yeah. So potentially what is happening is, within the notebook, suppose, so the best part is, like, if we have already worked on the Jupyter environment, or Jupyter environment, that it will be easy to understand, but it's very simple. Like, within the Python notebook, if you want to execute any SQL command, so I need to only change this cell type, which I'm saying it is the SQL. So if you see, if I execute this show database, it basically, I need to run, I can run from here, I can do a control enter as well, and this entire cell will be executing, right? So if you see the show database, these are the two databases that I have as of now. If I want to change again the cell, which is a sh type, I can do as well, like this, right? So this is how we can change. If I say, suppose I want to, I can click on this plus, and if I want to write something in Scala, you just go to Scala, and that's it. We are good to go with the Scala as well. If I want to change some kind of markup type of language, I can go with the MD. And there, if I can do anything, I can add these things. Okay, let me show. Yeah, create table. So this is the markup language. Yeah, this is MD. I've seen a create table with some data set in Databricks. So far, this is entirely a data Jupyter notebook way to do it. And potentially, this is how we can change this as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause and ask, if do we have any question, anything we want to ask or discuss, anything that I need to that I need to, I mean, uh, come up again. Okay. Okay. So before going deep on this execution, I was referring here, right? If you remember, initially I was referring this managed group. This is a managed group, right? At that time, there were only three resources, which is storage account, one NSG, and third one is a virtual network. But if I see here, if I do a refresh now, it basically gives me the things, right? You can see here the virtual machine, right? When I say virtual machine, so, and as of now I'm using two node. One is the worker node, another is the driver node, right? So if I search over here virtual, it basically, yeah, so you can see there are the two machines. These are the two machines basically. Behind the scene, these two machines are running in my cluster, right? And within these two machines, there are multiple resources come up, right? One is the operation, this is the one is the OS disk, another is a data disk, there's an NIC card, network interface card, there is an IP address as well. And all these resources are there. So once we left, I mean, like, towards the end, once I terminate my cluster, what will happen is, these all resources will be vanished. These all resources, we basically left those all resources. This is the beauty of the system, right? We just create the cluster, we used it, and we get rid of this, and there is no charge at all, right? Okay, so let's do it now. Okay, so yeah, this is my Databricks workspace. Yeah, so I was referring initially this data part, right? So if I click on this, you can see these are the two databases, right? Which is, one is the default, another is the Databricks, right? This is the data, the database that I have created, and it has a table is named as Diamond. Okay, so I mean, like, what we have done now, we have created a workspace, right? What I can directly created any table. So what I have done, I have created this table like this. So if okay, let me change the name. It will basically create another table. Okay, it will drop as well. Okay, I forgot it. So there is a drop as well. I need to give this name. Okay, and then create the table. Okay, so if I go with on these, I mean, these are the external tables, because these are external table. If you drop it, the data will be there. So I'm reading the data from this path, and this is the CSV file which we have. Okay, so I've created this. This is the table is being dropped, and table is created, right? So this is how. whatever the tables we have, maybe in Cloudera environment or on-pin environment, we can create it. Okay, so it will take it. This is the job which is I'm running first time. That's why it is taking time. So potentially, what it is doing, it is basically first procuring the Spark session, and based on that session, the job is executing. If you want to see the logs or Spark UI, you can click on this and go for this. It will basically show you that this one. It will show that part. You can see the Spark UI. So whatever the job we have executed, it's not a job, it's just a create create table command, but you can see here, right? This is the Spark UI. Um, okay, so we have a table now. Okay, sorry, I have not seen any chat. Let me see what exactly the chats are. Language like PowerShell. Yes, I mean not PowerShell, but we can use the shell script, the direct bash shell script, because behind the scene, this cluster is using the Ubuntu server. I will show you that as well, why it is Ubuntu only, and basically not PowerShell, but using shell scripting, we can use it. We have few pipelines that we are using, and based on the Power shell scripts, right? So now what we have done, we know that we have two databases, Databricks Meetup and of default. Basically, if you see this, this is the command from which using that I've created a Databricks. There's one more thing. Yeah, Ashish. Yeah, thanks. So this is a show create table command, right? And it basically shows that what all columns we have, and basically, so if you see here, what I have done is I have given a header as true, and that's where the header is being populated in this create table. So these are the table stuff, right? If I do a select star, it shows me like this. So this is a very small glimpse I want to share, that how it shows. Like, okay, so this is my diamond table. Okay, and yeah, it is showing me. So if you want to do some kind of plotting as well, we can, there's a very we can start display this table as well. I mean, like clicking on this, it will basically display that if I want to do small plotting for my team, or maybe somebody has asked on that, right? Now the important part is yeah, okay, so let's go to what is, yeah, so let's go to one more thing that I want to cover over here, which is the delta table. So basically, we have I mean, like if we have already gone through with the same teams channel, right? Last in the last meetup, we already discussed about the delta format, right? And if you go to the meetup group, this is the channel, data cows data channel, right? If you see this, getting start with the delta lake, this is what happened in the last meetup in the last 2 weeks back. This meetup happened, which talks about the delta lake. So if you go to the data couch, you search for the data couch channel, you will find this, and this talks about the delta lake, right? But there we talk about more or lessly the Python or the data frame way to handle the delta lake, sorry. But now I want to show you that how we can make the delta tables as well in Databricks. Okay, and how we can do the CRUD operations, how we can do all those things, right? Those we have discussed in earlier. Those guys, those want to see this, we just go to this channel, and yeah, and just go to this and subscribe this channel. And sorry, let me ping it again. I need to go for everyone. Yeah, this is a channel. Okay, so we if you yeah, delta lake, basically getting started delta lake is very deeply covered over here. Okay, so now let's do this. I will create for in our this meetup, and there is a reason why I want to create it. Just give me a sec. I need to copy paste something. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to create a diamond delta table again in the same database, Databricks Meetup, right? And what is changing? I've only used the using delta command and the location. That's it. So I'm this only this part is going to change. So previously what we have done, we have used using CSV. If you want to use Parquet, then we are only using Parquet, and we just create this table. So if I go with this, it will create the table. Okay, but this is a blank table, we don't have anything on this, right? So currently what, okay, it will, okay, so this table is created. Now let me insert some data from my previous diamond table because the schema is same. Okay, so I'm going to do a insert select on this. I can comment this and do an insert select. So I'm inserting into my new table, which is a delta format table, while selecting from my previous table, which is a CSV table. Okay. Okay, so basically what is happening now, it is inserting all the data from my CSV table to here, right? And it basically return me num reflected row and num inserted row. So it's the insert only, so inserted row comes into the picture. Okay, so if I now do the show create table, okay, so I need new table actually, sorry. I have to change this, show create table. Yeah, so show create table, it talks about we have used this location for this data, right? So if now if I do a ls minus ltr, so I mean like we can execute such commands as well. If we change this as like a shell type, okay. If I click on this, I need to copy the location, which is this. I need to copy here. Okay, so this is my location, and if I do this, yeah, so what it does, it has created one part file which is a parquet format, right? And there is a directory as well. Okay, and if I go inside this directory, okay, so there you can see there's a crc file and a json file. So json file is my version file. So if you see, this is a very high indexed, which is 0.json. This is again the second part. So this is what I have created in the daytime. Okay, it is using the us timing, I think so. Okay, so what I want to show you, so what we are going to do now, okay, just now I have created this table. So I want to basically show you the difference between this file and this file, and this helps us a lot to understand what exactly that, how exactly the delta works. Okay, so I'm going to cat over this on this file. Okay, 00, the basically this is the version file. I'm going to copy this and let me paste it in some notepad. Yeah, here. Okay, so just going through this is a commit information. One is the commit information. Just leave it as it is. It talks about few specific information: who is the user, what is the timestamp, mode, operation, all those things. Then there is a very important part which talks about the metadata. So this is the metadata. When I say metadata, it talks about, if you see, right, if you read this JSON, it talks about schema strings. Okay, there is a chat. Yeah, it talks about the schema string, and it talks about few more metadata related information. I can see it. Where is this? There is a min max actually. I'm looking for that. Okay, so this is a 0 1. So at that time there is no data at all. It should have actually. There should be min and max. Okay, let me copy the another one first. The version number 1, which is being created, and that will it will help us to understand it. No such file and directory. Okay, just give me a sec. Where it is not getting get. Yeah. So this is the version number one. Yeah, if you see this, right? So this is another version. When we have inserted the data, the new version is created. Just give me a sec. Uh, where is my notepad? This one. Okay, and this talks about a ad. Okay, so basically what it does now, uh, yeah, if you see here, right, within the ad it talks about the min value and the max value. Okay, so initially what happens in version 1, we have this file, right, and in version 2 we have this file. The file has changed now. This is the another file which is being created, right? So if you see this is like 962, and this is another file which is being created, this one. And apart from this version file has some metadata information as well. For this file, the metadata information like minimum values, what is the max values, all those are there. What are the null counters? Those are statistical values also available in delta specifically. If you talk about here, if you see the num records is this, right? If you talk about here, the num values is minimum value is this, maximum value is this, and say the num count is this. Now how these are going to help it that with delta, right? We can do the CRUD operations as well. Okay, we can do the insert, update, delete based on where clause, right? And while it is creating those Spark files, it is basically capturing this information as well: minimum value, maximum value, null counts. So suppose we want to do some kind of statistical analysis which talks about, okay, what is the minimum and maximum and null counts. All those, for to get all those information, we don't need to go to the table, right? We don't need to scan all these Parquet file whatever available on this. We only go to this metadata file and display the minimum or maximum values, right? So this is how delta as of now become a default format for Databricks. And once we create a delta format, we will be able to do the CRUD operation as well. Okay, so this is as of now, I want to show over here this part. Now let's move to the next part, which is important. Okay, so say suppose we want to do, okay, so when we have created our notebook, now we want to create we want to integrate this with our SCM, which is a Git repository. So within this workspace we can very easily integrate it with the SCM. So there is a entire thing is available. If you go to okay, let it be load. So what we have to do, so okay, it's loaded now. So basically what we need to do, it's a two-step process. One is like we need to get the token from GitHub and save this token into the Databricks. So as soon as we save this token, our integration is completed. Now we can directly whatever, okay, so whatever the notebook we are using, we can directly check into our uh, Git repository. It could be enterprise Git, it could be GitHub, or it could be there are few more options are available. So what we have to do is you need to go to the user setting. Okay, once you go to the user setting within the after clicking this workspace, into the Git integration, uh, you have this drop down. As of now I've already integrated to my GitHub account. So if you go with this, I need to change the setting. Yeah, but there are other option is also available, like Azure DevOps is also available, and there's a bit, I think something Bitbucket, or yeah, you can see the GitHub integration, Bitbucket, and Azure DevOps. So you can basically directly save your data. So if I compare it with the on-prem cloud data environment, right, either you have to install those Git library on your edge node. Okay, there you are coding, right? Otherwise it is very difficult to what we have to do, we need to whatever the Python part, or whatever the Spark submit commands, or whatever the SQL commands we are executing, we need to get those and do a and basically import those things manually, right? But here the Databricks has given those automatically. So what we have to do, let me do this. If I go to this workspace, here you can see this view version history for this notebook. You just click on this. I've already committed it multiple times to my Databricks. To my GitHub account, and potentially what we have to do, whatever I have changed. Okay, this is not linked. Okay, let me. Okay, I need to go to another one then. I think this one I have linked. Yeah. So if you see this say that git synced. So this file is already being synced to the Git, and if you see yesterday at somewhere at 1 p.m. I have committed one change, and before few minutes back also I have committed these changes. So I'm directly committing over here. Let me change something over here, and then okay. So what I have to do, I need to, maybe I can comment this. Okay, hash. Okay, and I need to save it. So just go for this, click on the save. Okay, so this talks about you can directly write your commit message. Okay, so we're committing into Git. She'll commit. Okay, and it basically committed directly to the Git as well. So potentially what we have to do, we have to take the token from my Git repository, from my Git account, and basically change it from here. So we just with few clicks, we just on basically integrate our Databricks workspace to the Git environment. That's it. So we don't need to capture it. We don't need to go to the edge node and do these all things, right? Now what is next? Okay, so apart from that, in the Databricks, okay, so do we have any question? I mean, yeah, let me see the chat first. Okay, what are the pros and cons of running transformation in ADF versus running on the Databricks cluster on? So Ashish, the thing is that in Databricks, right? Databricks, we need to create a data flow to do any row level transformation, right? So when we say the data flow, whenever we start a data flow, behind the scene, it creates a cluster itself. It's basically behind the scene, it is running a cluster itself. So in ADF, you can have a pictorial way to do a transformation like we have in Informatica, or maybe we have in a data stage. But here we don't have that way. Like we can't see the pictorial way. But potentially Databricks, I mean, like in the Databricks cluster, in ADF, whenever you run a data flow, there is a behind the scene, there is a cluster itself. Okay, yeah. So that's how pros and cons is like every time whenever you run a pipeline, you have to wait until the Databricks, the cluster behind the any data flow will start. Okay, but here is like say suppose your job is running, your cluster is running, and within the same cluster you can execute multiple jobs. But there this take is like there are two data flow activity. Okay, so once one data flow activity will complete, that particular instance of cluster will be down, and once it reaches out to the second one, it again starts a new cluster behind the scene. We can't see that, this is abstracted to us, but that's the problem. That's the problem with the ADF data flow stuff. For every data flow activity, it will start a cluster and close it. I start a cluster and you close it. While in Databricks, this is not the case. You only need to start. Say suppose your job is running for 15 minutes. You only need to start in one go only. Okay. So this is what I have experienced in my in few of my applications, and yeah. So I think I have almost covered the entire time. Yeah. Thanks, Ashish. Yeah. So just to add on this, this is what the Delta Lake. I mean, like I have not covered the basics of Delta Lake. So this is a very good place where we can look into the Delta Lake, what exactly it is. And basically this is another meetup group. So I'm the part of this group itself, right? Just joined this group, and this is a very I mean, like, we mostly have a different meetings, right, on this, and we plan for that. So as of now, you can see this is a data couch group. Please subscribe it. And I mean, like, yeah, currently we are planning to have a series with respect to different Azure services, so that we will be posting on this group itself. And yeah, so please join this group and subscribe this group. And this is another channel. So basically, data coach is a facilitator, right? So this is the LinkedIn profile, and there are so many posts are coming, right, that talks about different stuff which related to ML, AI. All those things are available, right? We can search for the Facebook and Facebook profile as well for data couch, and there are so much posts are keep on coming. So you see the GCP stuff is there, right? If you go down, like Confluence is we know about that, how Kafka has become a niche, right, as of now. So the entirely managed with the Confluent, right? So Confluence. And then this talks about the NLP. So please subscribe this channel, and we will be getting the post, whatever is being, I mean, whatever the new post will be given to us, right? I've already subscribed this, right? Yeah. So I mean, so sorry. I mean, like, I want to cover more things, but I'm having a lack of time, right? I've just I have couple of more things that I want to cover. Like,
You
if
can
you
go
see
ahead,
here.
no problem. Harshit, you want to go ahead? You can go ahead, no worries. Anyhow, this will be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel so other people can watch it. So if you want to continue
Okay.
for next 15, 20 minutes, so you can take your own time. That's fine.
Oh, okay, okay, good, great. Thanks, Babuk. Yeah. So potentially, I've covered how we can create a Databricks notebook, all those things, and then try to execute it, right? Now, so from the industry point of view, right, for any enterprise point of view, what we have to do, we are very much interested in NCM. So we have covered about the Git integration, right? When we have, so one more thing I want to highlight over here. We saw that they are the databases, and they are the tables, all those things are available, right? Now when we stop this cluster, and if I start it again, right, there should be some way that I will got these tables, right? So potentially, if we have worked on the Cloudera environment, right, we have the Hive meta store, right, where we are saving all these meta stored later information, like what is the table, what is the table structure, what all things are there, right? What is the databases, right? Now from the enterprise point of view, what happens is, whenever we create a Databricks workspace, it by default creates a Hive store as well, a basically meta store as well, okay, behind the scene. And this meta store basically referring over here, if I click on this, these are the databases, these are the tables, this information is being saved over there only. Once I have searched on the logs, I found that this is a MariaDB, that is what is creating behind the scene, okay. But from the enterprise point of view, sometimes what happens, within for your enterprise, maybe they are not ready to open that port, okay. So MariaDB is running a port, right, is running on one of the port, and there is a JDBC driver that we are using, right? But sometimes that port is not open. Then what to do? So basically, based on our enterprise level policies, we may need to basically integrate with the self-hosted meta store as well, okay. So if I go to the presentation again, so this is a meta store configuration. So there is a potential documentation available. We can use the external Hive meta store, okay. So I mean, I mean, like, I have multiple environment. I've worked on a multiple environment. One of the environment, this is, we don't need this external Hive meta store configuration to be done. But in another environment, because of the policy from my enterprise, from my company, I won't be able to create this as like as it is being offered by default, right? So that's how, that is what we have to taken care with respect to my enterprise level configurations, okay. Apart from that, there's one more thing which we can cover today is, yeah, this one. Okay, so what is this now currently what I have done, whatever I have showing you, right, whatever the data or the tables that I have created, I have used DBFS. I have used Databricks file system. So if you go here, let me go this first. Yeah, if you go here, so I have used this path. Okay, this is the path. I will show this path as well. Just in next 1 minute. But this is the local path. We are not using any storage layer, right? We are not using for Azure. It could be like ADLS Gen 2, right? Azure Data Lake Storage, basically. Or for if you talk about the AWS, it could be S3, the object storage, right? But here what is happening, I'm using the DBFS, which basically resides on this machine itself. Okay, so if you want to see this, okay, let's go to this on the home page. If you click on this import and export data, you can see here the DBFS. So within this DBFS, if you see, I have created the path I have used is like delta and delta diamond delta. So this is where I'm saving this data, right? But potentially this machine, this driver node is not so big, right? The driver node is not so big. So what we have to do, we have to integrate this environment with my ADLS Gen 2 or S3. Okay, so ADLS Gen 2 in case of Azure, S3 in case of AWS, and as of now the entire thing is also available on the GCP. So we may need to basically integrate it with the GCP as well. Okay, so potentially what is happening is, these are the Spark configurations. Basically, there are multiple ways to do it. So this first way is what we, these are the specific configuration where we are creating a mount point. Okay, so if you see this is a very important line. This talks about the ADLS Gen 2 URI. URI is unique resource identifier. So for SDFS, if somebody has worked on SDFS, it comes like this, right? SDFS colon double slash, and then it talks about name node, node, right? And then it talks about the root directory. Okay, so in a similar fashion, for ADLS Gen 2, we have this qualifier, which is ABB ABFSS. Okay, this is a Gen 2 Gen 2 qualifier. So what will happen is, whatever that, so this is what we are doing in this piece of what I'm doing. I'm basically doing a mounting. I'm basically mounting the ADLS Gen 2 container to my this part. Okay, so once I do this part, I will be able to save all my data into the ADLS Gen 2 based on this mount point. But this is something static in nature, right? I mean, like, I have to only once create a mount point, and I'm very good. I can, whatever the table I've created. So if I go to my create table statement, this one, right? No, not this one, sorry. This one, this path I'm talking about, the path, or you can say this path, the location path, right? This path I can directly use that. I have done, like, how we can do it. If I copy paste there from here to here. Okay, I need to exit first. Yeah. uh, oh, sorry, control Z. Just, I need to go here, copy it, and basically I'm talking about this path. So what I have to do, I have to change over here, and I have to use my mounted part, MNT. Okay, and this is how I can give my container address, the entire path. Maybe after this it will be something like root. Okay, let me change it, which is root. Okay, so this is how one of the way to mount it to my ADLS Gen 2, right? Potentially there is another way. We don't want to mount, because mount is static in nature. Okay, what we can do, we can use this configuration as well, the Spark configuration, and we have to put this configuration in my init script. So whenever my cluster runs, we have to we can add this configuration. So if I go to here, I mean, when I was just explaining about the cluster, I was talking about that. I'll come to this advanced point after once I reach out to on this, right? So if I go with this advanced, here I can give a Spark configuration as well. Any Spark configuration I can put over here. So this with this configuration is, what it does is, we have created a service principal. Okay, we have created a service principal, we have created a scope as well. Databricks scope to get the service principal key at runtime, and we have given a directory ID which is our tenant ID. So tenant ID is like, if you see this xyz.com, so I'm say suppose I'm working with XYZ company, so my tenant ID will be xyz.com. Okay, so potentially with this stuff, I can whenever my cluster starts, it basically already authenticate. It's already authenticate to basically read and write based on this service principal access. Basically, what is happening here? Okay, what is happening? I'm basically impersonating my service principal. If I put it like this, so whatever, because the access is being given based on the service principal. Here what is happening, I've created the mount point, and again I'm impersonating my service account, my service principal as well. It should be service principal. Yeah, you can see here the service principal, the service principal name, right? There is another way to do it. I mean, potentially we don't want to make it on a static in nature. If you see here, this is as of now blur because I have not that part of I'm not procured that cluster. If you see, it talks about enable credential pass through for user level data access. So what we've done is, once we click on this, whosoever user, so currently Harshit is executing any query, doing select, these, my credential is being passed through from Databricks to the ADLS Gen 2. And based on whatever my access is there in ADLS Gen 2, say I have a read access, or say I have a contributor access, read write access, or maybe I'm being a owner. Based on that, the query will reply to me. Based on that, I will be able to access my ADLS Gen 2 containers from Databricks cluster. Okay, so say suppose if you talk about these two tables, right? Say suppose diamond table, I have the access. Okay, and diamond delta, I don't have the access, right? So wherever the data is being saved for diamond table, what I have to do, I have to change my data level access on ADLS Gen 2 using RBAC. So if I change my RBAC, I made it okay, Harshit should not have any access on that. I only need to remove the access from ADLS Gen 2. I can see this table, I can see the metadata, but I can't query the data, right? For this as well, if say suppose if we want, okay, if we create some this table somewhere in ADLS Gen 2, and which says okay, Harshit can have the access on this, what will happen? I may have ADLS Gen 2 read access, and if I execute a query, it will basically give me the data, otherwise doesn't give. So basically why I'm cover this thing, because these are the different way to manage the access data and other stuff as well. It is very important, and this is differ from one enterprise to another enterprise for whomsoever we are working. So this is a credential pass through way. We may create a mount point, we may create a we may start with a Spark configuration, so whenever the Spark cluster starts, it will done. So these are the things that we may encounter in different projects whenever we are working on the Databricks side. The one thing I want to mention over here, what is the benefit? I mean, if you talk about Cloudera on-prem environment versus Databricks, right? So Cloudera environment is managed by some admin team. Okay, so I'm a part of application development team, right? I want to install a library, I need to reach out to admin guys, right? If I want to change a version of any library, I need to reach out to the admin guys. But this is not, I mean, like, I feel a challenge on that, because I want to do something and I'm dependent on other team. Potentially, when we use a Databricks like this, we create our own cluster, which is an application level cluster. We can manage each and everything. There is no dependency to the different teams. So I need to deliver this solution to my business, and I don't need to worry about it. Okay, I have to reach out to on the deployment day. I need to cloud admin team. Okay, I need to engage those. So that kind of power comes with Databricks. That is what I have felt since last 3 years. I'm working on this environment, right? And yeah, one more thing I want to cover here. What was that? Yes, I think I've covered pretty much everything. Yeah, just one thing only. I've just explained the initial part, right? If you see, these are the resources. Let me terminate my cluster now, and once as soon as I cluster within next 5 minutes, I mean, if we are on in this meetup, we will see that these all resources will be vanished. Only the initial three resources, which was talking about the storage account, which basically save this I mean, like, from which this GUI comes into the picture. All those things, those are there in my cluster. Like, this is This is a terminated cluster. Those things will be available, and I will be releasing all these resources. So only these three resources will be available, and apart all those things, network interface, public IP, disk, all these will be are going to vanish. So let me terminate it. It may took around 5 minutes to basically release those resources to Azure, and yeah. So potentially one more thing I can tell you that Databricks also gives you a free trial for 14 days. I'm also using a free trial only. So currently I'm only just paying for the Azure virtual machines. I'm only paying to the Microsoft, not to the Databricks. So this is a free trial. So basically I've already explained, like there the billing is happening on two places. One is to the Azure for their infrastructure resources like these resources. Another is to the DBR. Like we come to know about this DBU, right? This DBU 0.75 DBU. This is being paid to the Databricks. So as of now, my trial version is going on, which will end in next 13 days. And so I don't need to pay anything to the Databricks, but I'm going to pay something because I'm basically using these virtual machines to start my cluster. Right. So if you wait for 2-3 minutes, it will be released, and there's nothing will be available over here. Okay, so that is what I want to cover today. I mean, yeah, I know that it's Saturday and there are so many things, but yeah, if you have any question, right, you can post me. Yeah, I mean, we can connect on the LinkedIn as well, right? So just search with Harshit Goel, you will find me. Or I mean, you can go with this meetup channel as well and post if you want to do some posts, right? You can see this. There is a my friend has posted this as well, so we can write a comment over here. We'll address those. And potentially one more thing, this environment is available for all those public CSPs, basically public cloud interfaces. As of now, few days back only this GCP added, I think somewhere in March, right? So one Databricks you can use anywhere, be it AWS, Azure, or GCP, right? If somebody is preparing for some kind of interviews and those things, they can only need to run this Databricks and a few things about these platforms, and that's it. They are good to go with Databricks, right? Yeah. So that's it from my side. Thank you everyone. Just look into the Delta Lake, please. This look into this YouTube video. Okay, it talks a very detailed way of Databricks, and this is a data couch channel. Yeah, we can post any question if we have regarding Databricks in this channel as well. And yeah,
Yeah.
so thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much,
much.
Harshit. It was a very detailed session, and I understand you are also participant of this meetup group. So you took an initiative and you have delivered a session. So I am requesting everyone to be like Harshit, so that we have many people who are sharing knowledge, not just one person or two persons. So that's why I'm just requesting others also who are participating in this meetup. You are most welcome to share knowledge in this meetup group. So thank you so much for attending the meetup, and thank you, Harshit, again for having such a detailed session. So we really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.